Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to episode number 162 here on season 1. And today we are getting into making a income on stash. Anyway, so this question comes from ThaProduct. And he says, how much money should you make in order to make a withdrawal from your stash account? Also, what's your perspective on Bitcoin? That's a great question. Bitcoin is a hot topic, just cryptocurrency in general. Spicy, actually, really spicy. So anyways, how much money should you make in order to make a withdrawal from your stash account? I think that's a great question. Most people have that question. And I guess I kind of look at your question and see two different ways of just to help kind of pay bills monthly, and then also retirement thing that, eventually everybody plans to do, or eventually to stop working. So I'm going to try to tackle them both. I'll probably spend more time on the retirement side of it because stash is a long-term investment account, more or less, whereas it's not really short-term, trying to generate a form of stream of passive revenue or income. So first of all, the first principle would be that before you can cash out is that you want your account to continue to compound interest. So that means that the amount that you're planning to pull out needs to be more than what you have to pay out per month, or per year. So for instance, on a typical stash account, you're looking at, as long as it's under $5,000, you're looking at a $12 a month charge fee that you got to pay. So you got to at least be making more than that. And then I would say, if you're planning on pulling money out, I would suggest pulling maybe half of the dividends that you get paid. If you're looking for I want to pull out money every single month, I would look at pulling about half of the dividends out. But for the most part, when your account is real young, especially over the first 5 years or so, you want to make sure that you're continuing to reinvest those dividends and continuing to try to build that growth in that account. That'll help set you up for the long term and help you compound that account. Whereas, it would say even 5 to 10 years, you want to make sure that you're doing that. And then after 10 years, then you could go back and start looking at pulling out dividends and that kind of thing. But as far as that, you need to make over at least $12, and then whatever it costs for the fee of holding that ETF, and hopefully the dividend, eats that up for the most part, and then so on and so forth. So honestly, for me, if it comes down to a month and I'm oh, well, I need to pull out $1. I made a profit of $2, so I'm going to pull out $1. Is $1 really worth it? Go recycle 20 cans and just, keep that $1 kind of thing. And continue to just invest that $1, basically, is what I would recommend. As far as pulling out money, obviously if you need it and money's tight, you got to, it's better to pull money. I think better to pull money out of your stash account, which is your more of a savings, long-term investment account. Pull money out of there. I would save that for last before you go take a loan out, because it would be, I think it's worse to go into debt than it is to pull out money to repay it to yourself again, loan yourself money versus taking a loan from the bank, because that money's still going to continue to grow. However, long term, looking at retiring, I would rather have an account that's the size of, I would rather have an account size that I can just live off the dividends. So when I go to retire, I would rather have an account where I can still have the growth of the ETFs, but live off the dividends that I get paid from those ETFs. Besides the real estate investment trust, I would say the number one in dividend would be Delicious Dividends, and that pays around roughly 2.82. So we'll just round up to 3 for math purposes. And so if I was just to do this, live off the dividends, I would need to make around $1.4 million at a 3% dividend to make around $42,000 a year. Obviously, that's not included fees for the $1.4 million that I would have invested or anything like that. That's just basic math. 1.4 billion times 3% gives you around $42,000 a year. However, I wouldn't like to just pull all my dividends out. I would like to, have some percentage still saved over, and that also is not including taxes that you would pay on that. So you're looking at probably 15% tax maybe on that $42,000. So you would actually need probably around 1.6, 1.8 million to account around to about $40,000, and right about there. And then I would also like to try to reinvest some of those dividends, so that way I can set it up for my kids' future and their kids' future and so on and so forth. However, for most people, $1.4 million, 1.8, 1.10, 1.10, that's like, anyways, you know what I mean. $2 million is not realistic for most people. So here's some kind of realistic principles that I would focus on. Is so at $500,000, that would be around a 3% dividend again, which is about that's pretty good unless you were invested into an REIT, which is around 5. And then you would need around like 5 to 6% growth on that account also. And then you could pull your growth, your dividends out, and you would make roughly around $40,000 a year. Or you could do 5,000. Then the reason why I said 8% on that one is because you figure 7 to 8% is what your growth on that account probably should be. That's just year over year. So that gives you money to still reinvest and compound, just not as much. And then, or you could do the $500,000 at 10%, which would be around 3% dividends, and then 7 to 8% growth, which would give you $50,000 a year to live off of. So that's living still pretty comfortably. The median salary is around $50,000. So if your wife and you, or if it's just you pulling that money out, like that's still pretty steady income, and that should last you still quite a bit. It'll last you 10 years if it doesn't even draw interest, and that's not even including like dividends or anything like that. Like that's just saying if it doesn't grow at all, you still got 10 years to live on before you like need to start like the ship sinking kind of thing. So anyways, let's go ahead, and I hope that answers your question. If it doesn't, feel free to post another question and explain it a little bit better on what specifically you mean. But let's go ahead and dive into my thoughts on Bitcoin. So my thoughts on Bitcoin right now is that we're in this hype bubble, this hyper bubble where people are just pumping Bitcoin, cryptocurrency up and up and up and up. And so a lot of the general population is starting to become a buzz, and so more of the general population is getting into it, which is by far great. But at some point, we're going to have a downturn, a market correction, just the way it works. And I think that Bitcoin is not going to make it long term. And I'll just be the first one to kind of toss it out there. I mean, I'm sure that other people have. And it's not that I hate Bitcoin. I absolutely love it. I love what they're all about. And I think that they're great for what they started. But Bitcoin's unwillingness to change in the blockchain, which is why like last week we seen such high fees. Like I could literally not buy Genesis mining contract or anything because the fee was like $30, and it was like my account, I only have like $20 of Bitcoin or something like that. So it was like there's no way that I was able to actually like make a transaction. I would go into debt to make a transaction. Their unwillingness to change with the transactions and all that kind of stuff, and the blockchain itself I think can only hold around 7 million transactions or something, or 7 billion. Don't quote me. I'll play the video.
So this, I think, is the main bottleneck for the industry. Right now, the blockchain is about 100x off of being able to handle an end user application of about 5 million users, and about 20,000 off running Facebook as just one application on the blockchain. So we're quite a ways away.
I'll link the video of the guy one of the owners of Coinbase or founders of Coinbase talking about it. You guys can check in the description on that video. Actually, I'll put it in the comments, first one on the comments. That's a great video to watch. It talks about Bitcoin and how they need to change. However, I think that we will see the blockchain as part of everyday life and cryptocurrency. I think that those two are intertwined, and I think that we will see cryptocurrency still come about. I just don't believe it's going to be the Bitcoin. I think it's going to be something else. Bitcoin just happened to be the first mover in that industry. Right now, my personal opinion, right now I'm betting on XMR or better known Monero or Zcash, one of those two. Mostly betting hardcore on Monero right now. And the reason for that is just because it's completely anonymous. Like literally, it's impossible to track. It's so anonymous. And I was reading an article talking about how the federal government is starting to analyze Bitcoin transactions and all that kind of stuff. But they were saying that to analyze Zcash is a lot harder and pretty impossible. But Monero, the way that it was created and that kind of thing, was basically meant to be anonymous and be impossible to track. And so I'm betting on that. And another reason why is because I'm betting that the dark web users, which is where Monero is basically used right now, they're the forerunners to what's to happen here later on. So I believe that they're the market movers. They're like the testers. They're the product people that are like, well, this is working great for us. And then as well, when the general population comes on board and starts to use Monero, I believe that that's what's going to happen. But That's my personal opinion, and that's probably my personal bias on that as well. Right now, yeah, Bitcoin continues to rise, and all I'm saying is that make sure that you're properly protected, you have your assets kind of set, you have your stop losses set, and that kind of stuff in case we do have a steep downturn in the market, because Bitcoin is so volatile. Let's go ahead and get into the question of the day, and that is, what is the first thing you think about when you wake up in the morning? Well, if it's Monday through Friday, I'm thinking about I got to get outside, or I got to get out to the computers because I got to get my stocks, orders, all that kind of stuff up and ready to go for the stock market. I hope it's here 6:30 for me, and so it's like early morning, like 5 o'clock is when I'm up, and that's what the first thing I think about. And then it's like, okay, let me check my mining, and then YouTube, and then let me move into my woodworking company. But that's pretty much how my mind works first thing in the morning. Or it's like, should I just go back to sleep and screw the market for that day, or forget the market? My bad. Anyways, if you guys have any questions regarding Stash, Acorns, or Robinhood, as well as general investing advice, business, Etsy, or coaching, post those questions down below and I will try to get them on the next episode. And until next time, don't forget to subscribe up here and check out, I'm still giving away silver. And then check out this other video right here. And as always, thank you for watching. I really appreciate it.